Actually, it's one fat boy, and here are my NBA game predictions for January 12th of 2022. I'll be going over the spreads and over-unders for all 9 games. I got my spreads from FanDuel, and my over-unders are my thoughts on the games. For the Hornets at the 76ers, I'll be going with Charlotte plus 5.5. And I chose this because Charlotte has been playing decent. They've been keeping their games close. Actually, holding teams down below their averages, but when they do that, they're also below their average too. And when they go above and score a lot of points, they're also giving up a lot of points. So they just have a knack for staying in the game. So it's hard to bet them losing more by 6 than 7. Philadelphia has been closing out their games, winning by good amounts, which is good for them, meaning that they're playing the whole game, like playing hard that first half so they can rest that second half. But I think Charlotte, last 2 times they played them in December, they kept it close. Lost both times, but they kept it close, so I expect more of the same. But won't be surprised if Charlotte pulls out the win. But Charlotte plus 5.5, I'll be going over 222.5 as both teams can light up the scoreboard, and that's what I expect tomorrow night. A lot of scoring options on both sides. For Boston at Indiana, we're going with Boston minus 3.5. Boston has mostly all their players, and then Indiana has 2 of their scoring options, main scoring options out with Karis LeVert and Malcolm Brogdon. So I wouldn't bet too heavily on Indiana. Like if they're going to win, it's going to be behind like a big game behind Sabonis or Turner or one of their role players to just step up and have a huge game. But Boston has most of their players, like they got Tatum and they got Brown in, so that should be enough to take down Indiana. Plus they have their front court. I'll be going under 214.5, and even if both the teams were healthy, I'd still expect a low-scoring affair. But with what's left of these 2 teams, I'll for sure go under 214.5. Like I don't expect Indiana to cross the 100-point mark. Probably have them around like the 92 to 97-point range, somewhere there. Then Boston just, I don't know, they just don't score a huge amount of points. Like I don't see too many games where they're scoring over 120. So I'd pin them around the 106 range as Indiana. They're going to be playing decent defense because you still have Turner and Sabonis there. So under 214.5. For the Magic at the Wizards, I'll go with Orlando plus 9. So Orlando is on a bit of a losing skid, but I think they've been playing where they keep their games close. And the Wizards, they're not the best team in the league, but they're good enough to beat the Magic, and they'll likely win. So like I'd probably choose the money line for the Wizards before I choose Orlando plus 9, but I'll lean towards Orlando plus 9. Be going over 212.5 as the Orlando's defense shouldn't hold the Wizards scoring back too much, as I think the Wizards will score around like between 112 and 118, somewhere in there. And then Magic will keep it close mostly all game. So they should be right up there with Washington, like low 100s to like 109, like right before the 110, somewhere there. And then that's how you get the over 212.5. For the Heat at the Hawks, so Miami is plus 4.5. And I think that's kind of a steal as Atlanta, they haven't been playing too hot. I think they've been losing games that they should have won recently. Miami, even with all their players out, like their main 2 in Butler and Bam, they've been sneaking out some wins against some quality opponents. So I'll be taking Miami plus 4.5 because if like Robinson, Hero, and Strauss, if they can get hot from 3, it's like hard to beat them, and they're always going to play hard on defense too. So if they're making shots and then you're having a tough time making shots, that's a formula for a lost game. So I don't have too much faith for Atlanta in this game. I'll be going over 217.5, as I think Atlanta's defense won't even slow down Miami, as I don't think Atlanta's going to be closing out hard on the shooters, and if Miami hits those first few three-pointers, I think that's going to be game over. And then Miami, they're just going to continue to make those shots. Then Atlanta, they can get hot. It's like they have Trae Young. They have some shooters on their team, so someone can get hot for a quarter and get them over 270.5 for the game. But Miami should come out with a win. For the Mavericks at the Knicks, I'll be going with Dallas -2. New York, I can't really ever bet on them because they're just so sporadic. Their offense is kind of horrid. So, and then Dallas, they're kind of like the Knicks in the West almost in a way, but I think Mavericks can put together like good offensive nights, so that's why they're able to win more games than the Knicks. So that's why I'll be going with Dallas -2, as they're kind of the better version of the Knicks. I will be going under 215.5, as both these two teams' defense will like slow each other down a lot. I don't expect a very fast-paced game, more defensive-oriented game, a lot of bricks. So under 215.5. If one team does get hot, I will lean towards the Mavericks in that case, as they got more shooters with like Hardaway Jr. or Porzingis. Then Porzingis, I think, should be wanting to dominate the Knicks, as that was his former team, and then he wants to prove himself that he's still doing good on the Mavericks. So, but the overall scoring, I don't expect the Knicks to cross the 100 mark, especially not over 110, and that same goes for the Mavericks, but Mavericks should score over 100, but not over 110, so under 215.5. For Houston at the Spurs, I'll be going with Houston +6. So I don't really expect either team to pull away greatly from each other. Houston, they did have a good game a few nights ago where they beat a quality team, and I expect them to keep that same energy and keep this game close against the Spurs, as is a in-state rival. For the Spurs, I do expect them to score the ball a lot, but if Houston comes out inspired, it's going to be hard to slow them down. Like, I think the Spurs will still score a lot, but can they slow down the Rockets too? So Houston should stay in this game. I'll be going over 260.5, as I think the Spurs will score a lot, more like in the around like 112 plus or minus 5 points, somewhere in there. Maybe more towards like the 112 to 117 range, and the Rockets should be right there with the Spurs, maybe winning, but I'd say Spurs are more likely to come out with a win than Houston staying within 6, but I think Houston will be within 6 before like the Spurs win by 6. And then should go over 260.5, as I think the Rockets can score on the Spurs. For the Cavaliers at the Jazz, I'll be going Cleveland +6.5, as the Jazz, they should come out with a win. They are playing on their home court, and they do have most of their team back after like having no one on their team. So they're still shaking off the rust, but I think Cleveland have been playing very well, even with all their injuries and all that. They're able to plug in players into their system, and they come out with wins, or they're at least not getting blown out. So Cleveland +6.5. And in Utah, they lost their last game to not a great team, so I think it's safe to bet Cleveland +6.5. We're going over 218.5. So I think Jazz will be able to score a lot of points, but it's just their defense. That's what's been struggling lately, and especially if Gobert's still out. I forgot to check for that, but say if he's still out, Cleveland's going to be scoring the ball. If he is back, I think Gobert's going to be a little slow coming back from injury or his sickness, but that's why I'm going with Cleveland +6.5 and a little higher on the 218.5, because I think Cleveland can slow down the Jazz first, like keep them in the low 100s before the Jazz can keep Cleveland in the low 100s. So I say Cleveland scores probably like around 112. Jazz will be like right with them, but overall, I think this will go over 218.5, as there's enough scoring options on both teams. For the Lakers at the Kings, I'll be going with the Lakers minus 2.5. So Lakers should handle the Kings. I keep saying this each time I see the Lakers. They should handle this bottom tier team. Then they end up doing, like the last time they played the Kings, I believe they won. But there's other games where Lakers just kind of fall apart, and like LeBron, he's not having any problems, but everyone else on the team, they're just having problems, except for Monk here and there, but they're just having problems. But it is the Kings. I think they have enough problems in their own team structure, as you know, the front office of the Kings are just very good at losing games. So I got to go with the Lakers minus 2.5. I will be going over 224.5, as if this game stays close, this should be a high-scoring affair, as neither team is going to be playing that much defense. So over 224.5. Both teams have scoring options, and for the Lakers, if you got LeBron on your team, it's like you always got to have a chance to win. But it's like someone just needs to step up for them, and then for the Kings, they should have that energy to try and beat the Lakers. You know, as every team when they beat the Lakers, it's like they're playing in the Game 7 of the finals. They're just bringing all this energy trying to beat the Lakers. So if the Kings bring that intensity, I think they should keep it close, like without a problem. But I think Lakers will like find a way at the end of the game, like pass to LeBron. He'll figure something out. Lakers should come out with that win. For Brooklyn at the Bulls, we'll be going with the Chicago minus 1. So they did play last night, but I think they should come out with enough energy, because they did win by a lot, so their stars should get rest. And Chicago should beat Brooklyn. Brooklyn's just playing really sporadic right now. I don't have too much faith in them right now. My stock in them has gone down. But we'll be going over 212.5, as I believe the Nets, they like to show up against like the top tier teams. So I think they will be firing on all cylinders. They just need some of their role players to step up. I have more faith in Chicago's role players stepping up and playing well before Brooklyn's. Hence why I'm leaning towards Chicago. And then we'll be going over 212.5, as I believe the Bulls' defense will be a little bit staggered from playing last night. So the Nets should be able to score a little bit more compared to a normal night against the Bulls. And the Bulls, I think, will just have normal scoring output. So probably like a 112 to 106 team for both teams, somewhere in there. So that's ends up being over 212.5. And thank you for watching. Leave your comments on the games and your thoughts of what will happen tonight. And once again, thanks for watching.